Today, we're once again talking about the CT scanning story because we've got a bit of an update with the company itself that I think is a little bit shady, or at least in my opinion, based on what I'm seeing thus far. So I want to share that with you guys for you to make up your own mind down in the comments as always, and then also touch on a few topics around specifically why these guys that are using this CT scanning technology to search through packs and boxes of cards in order to find the hits and then dump the boxes that don't contain anything good onto the secondary market is a bad thing. Yes, it sounds silly to have to clarify that, but I want to share some things in a bit more detail than what I did in the last video. So just bear with me as always, and we'll get straight into it. Now, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, it is this video over here. Please do check it out. It's basically a pretty big deal because you've got a company now that is sort of advertising using CT machines to scan through boxes and packs of cards as a service, and they're charging people in order to do this. They currently don't have any pricing associated with boxes, but they are saying that, you know, if you want to send some packs in, it's going to be a few flat fees depending on how many you want to send in. I think the cheapest offering was $65 USD, which in my opinion, if you're looking to scam with this sort of thing, you know, that's chump change, because if you've got packs that are worth a few $100s or a few $1,000s and you've got the capital to sort of buy quite a few of those, you can pay this company, you know, to get it done for, you know, 20, 30 packs, and all of a sudden you've spent a few $1,000s, crush your profit margin a little bit. But if you can find the hits, then you're basically going to make a heck of a lot of money and go from there. So when people are sort of saying, well, it's a bit too expensive, I don't think it actually is, because, you know, eating into a profit margin of, you know, a few $100s when in fact you can make a lot of money is not that big of a deal in my opinion. But what sort of transpired since then is some interesting commentary from the likes of Rattle Pokémon and also the likes of Opossum Bud, as well as a few others in the sports card space, because the company has started communicating now saying they're not, you know, sort of happy with what's going down. Now, the first sort of thing that I want to touch on here is a video from Opossum Bud that I saw a little bit yesterday. I haven't seen it in a lot of detail, but what he talked to is the fact that this company is looking to sort of, you know, partner with companies or even content creators in order to spread the word around the work that it is they're doing. And if you're not sure exactly what that work is, like I said, it's searching through packs and boxes. And they're also basically looking to partner with these people in order to, you know, further research into different kinds of packs and all that kind of stuff, spread their horizons per se. Now, this is the company in question. It's Industrial Inspection and Consulting. And as you can sort of see over here, collector card CT scanning service, as I mentioned in the last video. There's the pricing that I mentioned previously. And again, examples down below. The reason why this is very interesting in terms of their communication thus far, and why I think they're doing a little bit of a shady thing, is that when this was sort of first announced and talked through from them in Rattle Pokemon's video from about a week ago, you can't see it here. If I click onto his channel and his videos, you'll see what I mean. Their commentary at the time was very much like they wanted to do some kind of collaboration. They weren't looking to sort of make this mainstream or anything like that. And I could be wrong when I say that, but it's Rattle's video from 11 days ago. I think it's this one over here. And it was just a bit odd for see them to do a 180, going from, you know, all of a sudden trying to work with him to research and all that kind of stuff. And they want to bring to light something that's been happening to the hobby for many years. Again, apparently people have been scanning these kinds of packs for many, many years in both the sports card space and also the Pokemon space. You know, going from saying they want to research to all of a sudden now offering it as a service. And it seemed a bit strange. And like I just alluded to, the reason why their context and communication thus far seems a bit shady is that they've now basically told Rattle, and he talks to this in his 40-minute video today, that they don't want to partner with him anymore because they don't like basically how he's going about communicating it. And I'll bring the video up for you guys to sort of see for yourself, and I've edited the video here just to make it easier to reference. But this is the email that was in his thumbnail that I just alluded to, where they're not sort of happy with how Rattle is going about things. And you can sort of see it in this last paragraph here, where they basically say they're still willing to work with him after seeing his initial video. But they go on to say, however, it's hard to work with someone who presents this information with such a negative/pessimistic tone, which is an interesting approach from these guys. Because like I think I alluded to a little bit earlier, when Rattle first talked about this, I think they were in one of the comments, and I mentioned this in my last video, this one over here, that they were looking to work with people and research and all that kind of stuff and try and bring light to something that's been happening in this space for a very long time with sports cards and also Pokemon cards. But now they're sort of maybe seeing how much money that can be made. So when they're seeing someone like Rattle, who is asking very fair questions, as he often does, it doesn't make me seem or feel very comfortable that this company maybe has the best intentions in mind. Because like we talked to last time, you know, this is like a can of worms for the secondary market, because they're going to now bring a light to this thing. Others are going to try and replicate it. And then you're going to have customers use this kind of service and basically take advantage of people. Because what do you think is basically going to happen here? You're going to have people use the service, find out a pack doesn't have anything good in it, and then they're going to sell that to somebody and not tell them that they use this service. And some of the things that Rattle talked to, at least I think he did in his first video, was maybe a company like this should be doing what BBCE does. Put a stamp on the pack or the wrapper or the box, whatever it is, when this service has been done, so future buyers will know. But again, like we said in the last video, if a company goes ahead and does that, nobody's going to go ahead and buy those packs because they're going to know that nothing contains anything within them, or those packs don't contain anything within them. So just an interesting approach from them. And the fact that Rattle is asking those kinds of questions, yet these guys are saying it's hard to work with someone who presents the information that way, just doesn't make me super comfortable. And obviously I wasn't super comfortable with this company in the first place doing stuff like this, because you're going to get scammers use this kind of service left, right, and center. But to sort of see his video and then take that approach, I think is very disappointing, and almost tells us all we need to know. Now, again, that's just my opinion, but I'm keen to hear what you guys have to say down below. But again, this choice of verbiage here is just very interesting. There's another point here in the video where he references an original email from them, and they go on to tell him that they've had a lot of YouTubers and journalists and collectors reach out to do the same thing that Rattle wanted to do, i.e. work with these guys to see what this technology can actually do. But this piece here is what scares the living daylights out of me, because like what we're seeing with Kurt's Card Care and BBC wraps and grading and read cracks and cleaning and all that kind of crap, people use this kind of stuff to make as much money as possible, and they want to do that by scamming people and not disclosing things. And this is just going to go right up there and sort of be as mainstream as those other things that I just mentioned. Some people sort of said, like I think I alluded to when we referenced the website in the first place, the pricing model, $65 is not a heck of a lot of money for somebody to commit to rip someone off. And the fact that you've got all these other avenues where people are doing things like cleaning and not disclosing it is no different to this. And because we see, tens of thousands of people use those services by, the statistics mentioned by the likes of Kurt and Mr. Minty and all that kind of stuff, why do you think this is going to be any different? And that should scare you about the secondary market if these companies, don't fix things. And obviously, when I say these companies, I mean the likes of manufacturers, and they can fix things for the future, but not for the stuff that's already printed. And that's very scary, and that's why it should be, concerning. And for that reasons that I just referenced about, people using cleaning services, and we're going to see the same thing replicated here with no disclosure. Who's to say this company says, what, we've got to change of heart, we're going to change our mind, we don't think this is ethical to be doing. Who's to say that another person's not going to do the same thing? And I think there's a very high chance of that when people can see how much money can actually be made with stuff like this. Clearly, there is a demand, because they've come out with this statement to Rattle basically saying, we've got YouTubers, journalists, and collectors reaching out to us. Again, from a sports card space specifically, Sports Card Madness made this community post 14 hours ago from the time of recording, that they've lined up an exclusive interview with this company, which I thought was very, very interesting. And they say the same sort of thing, where they've had a lot of people reach out with requests, and they need to focus in on ironing out the details, etc. So this interview is going to be one to watch when it does drop. I'm curious to see whether the Sports Card Madness guys are actually going to ask tough questions. I would very much like to input a few questions myself, or even be part of that interview, because this is one of those things that could have significant impacts on the hobby as a whole. Now, like I sort of said in the intro, at least I think I did, I went on a rant, so I've forgotten some of my talking points. And one of the things I talked about in the last video was the impacts this would have on the secondary market, and why the likes of grading companies and manufacturers would have a vested interest in making sure that impact is minimized as much as possible, and why I think they will likely band together in some capacity to make sure this stuff is deemed as unethical, or at least, if it does go ahead, it has proper controls and policies around it to make sure that customers are protected. And I'll get to why I think that is the case in a second. But very quickly, on the secondary market, people are saying prices will come down. That's great. Whilst I want prices to come down and I want to see a correction in this space so I can buy more for my own PC, that's not a good thing, because if all of a sudden you have consumers out there that are less confident to participate in the hobby, or less confident to go ahead and buy goods on the secondary market, that means those things aren't going to sell, which maybe means prices will come down. But if you've got sellers unable to move goods because there's a risk out there that people are using services like this and are taking out the hits and just selling the trash to the general public, people probably aren't going to buy, new product either, current product. And that's why the likes of Topps and Panini and grading companies will not want this stuff to go ahead as mainstream as what this could happen, right? They want this stuff to not exist, and why Topps is going to be looking into how they can wrap their cards in foil that basically doesn't get picked up by these CT scanning machines. Like there's a vested interest there clearly, and I think people that are saying there isn't are off base and very much so. And I'm keen to hear what your thoughts are down below, but it just doesn't make sense to me. Like you want that consumer confidence to remain there on the secondary market, because if that's lost, that demand is going to reduce across the board eventually. So there's a vested interest from these companies to make sure that this stuff is vetted. And I can't recall if I mentioned earlier, but it's going to be things like stamping these boxes, because if you sit there on the secondary market and want to buy a box of cards, right? I feel silly having to explain this, but you're going to sit there constantly and think, well, this service is out there. It's not that expensive. This is a very expensive box of cards. Why did you not send it into one of these companies to check what's in there? And if you sent the other ones in but didn't send this one, that tells me you're lying to me. Like clearly the stuff that is going to be selling that is expensive and worthwhile to collect is going to be sent to these companies. So, I just think it's a bit interesting and just a bit wild to sort of see the verbiage change from this company. Initially looking to partner with individuals, looking to sort of research into this sort of stuff, want to bring light to the fact that this stuff has been happening a long time, and I want to make it visible to the public that this stuff is out there, this stuff works, and it's actually not that difficult to do. So now all of a sudden, not wanting to talk to the likes of Rattle Pokémon, who ask very fair questions in my opinion, to now, wanting to partner with certain YouTubers and do an exclusive interview and sort of go down a path that we've seen other companies go down a path of in this space with, partnerships and sponsorships. And then all of a sudden you have people that have vested interests and people that are not going to speak up because they're company men. And next minute, this company is going to have a booth at the next national offering this service, on site, which I think if it operates effectively, I think it can work, but it has to be done in a way that if you send something in, a pack or a box of cards, this company basically says in their T's and C's, they get to stamp it with permanent ink, what the hits were, or whether or not it contained a certain hit or not. Or they put a serial number on there that people can reference online and then, see the hits for themselves, which opens, a whole can of worms in terms of, people scamming the system with that and all that kind of thing. But I think if this thing wants to go ahead and this company wants to do the right thing and they want to be ethical, they have to be stamping the output of their work and then putting the results of that, sort of like a PSA cert number where you sort of type it in on the internet and it tells you or shows you the images that you can sort of see here on their website. I'll bring it back up now. All this kind of crap. Basically, you want to send something in, you sign the T's and C's, they put it online and you can't change anything about it. That's the only way something like this works, in my opinion. But like I said, the lens is on this now, so you're going to have people taking advantage of it, just like we've seen with card cleaning and repacks and resealing and all that kind of crap in the past. Because again, we've got clear-cut examples of people being in this space for the money these days, people trying to do whatever they can to squeeze every dollar they can out of their fellow collectors. I shouldn't say fellow collectors because these guys are pieces of shit. They're not collectors that do stuff like this and don't disclose it. This is right up there in my opinion. I've talked for a long time. I do apologize if I look like crap. You might not see me for a few days. My son, my 11-week-old, has been in hospital for the last few days. I basically got kicked out. I can't stay there overnight. So this is just me recording it to take my mind off things. But if you don't see me for a few days, that's why. Fingers crossed as everything, is okay. But I'll update you guys regardless when I do pop around again. So it is what it is. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.